BetaCast. I'm Martina Dudkiewicz. I'm a part of Beta team. This is BetaCast. This is a YouTube podcast where we aim to discuss innovation and collaboration everywhere, because we believe that indeed collaboration and innovation is in every aspect of our lives. This is the second season of the second episode of the social impact season, and we are creating this together in partnership with Impact Hub Lisbon. And today we have a very special guest to share his brilliant ideas with us. So Alan, thank you very much for being here and accepting this invitation. And to give everybody a little bit introduction to today's conversation, Alan is an international recognized risk management thought leader and impact investor. And what is interesting to know, that his mission is to protect biodiversity and regenerate ecosystems by growing Earth-positive economy. Hello, Alan, and welcome one more time.
Thank you, Martina.
I want to start right away by asking you about this concept of Earth-positive economy. For me, this is a shift from the economy that is extractive, that is devastating our environment, even if we claim to be aware that there is this negative impact, for example, through the carbon footprint. And this switch is to economy that is regenerative. Can you explain more? What does it mean?
Yeah, that's really a good summary. The sort of I think the backstory to that is quite fun. I had a lovely meeting with Professor Paul Ehrlich at Stanford, an ecologist who was also part of the Club of Rome, and we had this. We had actually designed a tree coin, basically a cryptocurrency backed by mangrove trees, with the idea that anyone could, for example, invest in natural capital assets, so living assets, which get their value from being alive and not from being dead, right? Paul loved that idea, liked to tell stories of how he, when he meets economists, he usually asks them a very simple question. So this model that you have, does it include Earth? And they usually go, what? And then he goes, well, maybe you should think about the model again, right? And that's the fundamental issue that we have with our economy, is that we forgot about Earth, right? It's a very small accounting error, because Earth is actually so abundant that on average, actually, if we put 1% of our consumer spending, or GDP, into protecting and regenerating vital ecosystems like mangroves and rainforests, humanity, actually, that activity of, for example, taking a train or flying, which has different levels of carbon footprint, could actually be Earth positive, right? So for a train ride, maybe it would be 0.1% of the ticket cost, whereas for a plane ticket, it might be 2%. But on average, 1% basically moves us from being extractive to being regenerative. So Earth positive really is a pledge to leave Earth better than we found it. It is taking responsibility for your footprint, right? And then having a handprint that's bigger than a footprint, right? So we're all going to travel. Every time we travel, every time we consume, all of our devices, everything, consumes carbon. We have a carbon footprint. But instead of living with the guilt that we have this carbon footprint that is destroying, the world, the good thing is to know that we can, with a very small investment, actually have this handprint that's actually bigger than the footprint. So when I fly to visit my parents in California, I know that flying from Lisbon to San Francisco round trip is about a 3-ton carbon footprint, right? The beautiful thing is I can actually plant 6 mangroves for less than 10 euros. And those mangroves, as they grow, actually will take down more carbon than I'm actually emitting. So the point is we don't need to live with the guilt that we are Earth negative, that we can all make this transition to be Earth positive, and it works for individuals as well as for companies, right? And it's really about embedding it, putting into the accounting system. So for me, my pledge is that I will be 10 times Earth positive with any travel that I do. So that I'll plant 10 times the amount of trees, protect 10 times the rainforest to take my carbon footprint.
Alan, well, I must say that that sounds like a beautiful dream, but I hope it's not only a dream. It can also stay a dream. Can you tell what would be the way that country authorities and businesses could actually make it happen?
Sure. Yeah. So it's a very simple accounting system, right? So it starts with understanding what is your impact. Let's say carbon footprint, and there's some great calculators out there. I would recommend looking at a project called Veridium.io, which was actually pioneered by the first inventor of the first tropical carbon forestry accounting system, who basically pitched this to the United Nations, and it became the UN REDD+ program. And what's special about his methodology is that it's actually an independent methodology. It's based on looking at what contributes to the carbon footprint on a factor level. So you want to, for any transaction, then they can actually look at what's the carbon footprint of taking a bus, of buying a pair of jeans, of drinking a can of soda. All of these have different carbon footprints. So the first thing is understanding what it is, right? And then the next thing is that we can actually, once we have an understanding of the carbon footprint of an individual, of an organization, of a city, of a country at any level, what we can then do is actually just invest in natural capital assets. There are some very effective ones to draw down carbon, like mangrove trees are really good at taking down the carbon and storing it. There are, that's super important to protect rainforests because so much carbon is stored there. And actually deforestation is more than 20% of the carbon emissions. So my recommendation would be to invest in carbon assets that are not necessarily local, but to take a global view.
Yeah.
So for example, in a country like Switzerland, it might cost 160 Swiss francs to draw down an extra ton of carbon with a new solar project, for example. It's an expensive country. It's very well managed already. It doesn't suffer massive deforestation, right? But the 160 Swiss francs, if you spent that in Myanmar, where we have a mangrove project that we're supporting, you can plant 160 mangrove trees that will draw down 80 times more carbon, 80 times, than the project in Switzerland, while also giving impoverished people livelihood and alleviating so many other problems as well. So it's important as well when we make those investments to actually think on a planetary level and not just on a local level.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds like, so it seems like different places can actually do this, but the key thing is this global approach and really thinking about the whole earth, not really of your only on your piece, because with as you mentioned. But going back to what we already mentioned here about this earth positive cryptocurrency, and the whole topic of money with purpose and reinventing the financial system. I had the pleasure to read a little bit of your interviews, and it's a great concept. So that's my first question, to tell a little bit more about this. And could you tell us also some more, maybe even right now, tangible examples from the market who is introducing this approach in the society?
Sure. So yeah, thanks for bringing in the topic of currency and currency with purpose. This idea for me came in about 2015. I had the pleasure of meeting Todd Lemons, the founder of Veridium, who, as I mentioned, developed this accounting system. And also he launched the first Red Plus project in Indonesia. And I was looking at this incredible project and saying, wow, like realizing that every euro invested in his conservation project to protect forest and provide livelihoods and schools and hospitals to communities had an impact of between 500 to 1,000-fold. It's a huge amount, right? And I realized, gosh, I'd been interested in Bitcoin for a while already. And I realized, my goodness, how great would it be to actually have a currency that's backed by these rainforest carbon credits? Because what a carbon credit is a unit of account of something very important with a positive impact. And that's what a currency is. A currency is a unit of account. It also is a language for value exchange. And so this idea of currency is that by having different currencies, like Bitcoin is a new language for value exchange. People have adopted it, and other cryptocurrencies as well, because they see that there is some kind of function for that that's very secure. Like, for example, with Bitcoin, there's this ability to transfer value digitally. And there's a utility to that, and people understand that that has value. So in the same way, we increasingly now realize that nature has value, right? I mean, every child knows it. But it's still nice to hear, for example, Klaus Schwab.
Maybe this adult world has to remember this one more time.
Exactly, yes. It's like every child knows this, but it was nice to see Klaus Schwab this year, in the wake of COVID, talk about how, what is very important, what we realize now is that, we are one planet and we need to take care of nature and be a force of regeneration. And so, yes, us adults, we kind of have to remember, we have to relearn, right? And there's a story I can tell you about how I got into this path actually, through my daughter, who asked me a question that just changed my perspective completely. But it's a very simple thing. With the power of currency really is that it enables us to instantaneously essentially support positive impact in a way that's not possible with current approaches, right? So right now, every city in the world has a carbon neutral by 2040 or 2050 program. Number one, that's too late. Number two, the programs are not realistic. People are spending a lot of time thinking, oh, do I need to change the light bulbs? Should I put in the solar? Should I put in new insulation? What else can I do, right? Lots of people are doing all these things. It's really nice to think about these things, but it's not impactful enough, right? While there's a marginal benefit of changing your light bulbs and insulation and putting solar, it's not fast enough for us to actually reverse the destruction of nature that is irreversible. So when a species goes extinct, when biodiversity collapses, that's it. And so what we enable you to do is with the press of a button on a telephone to be earth positive, right? Let's not wait until 2050 to be earth positive. We can press the button right now. Like I said, with my plane ticket, for 10 euros round trip on a 1,000 euro plane ticket, I can actually fly without the guilt that I'm leaving a negative impact.
And do you think this concept, like if it exists, like we have the means to actually start to make it work, what would you say that, is there a country that could implement this right now, or is like most likely to be ready to implement this now or in the near future?
Yeah, the beautiful thing is every country and every individual and every organization could implement this. So this works at every level, right? If I think about a country that's doing that has a very good policy, I would say, for example, South Korea has introduced a carbon tax. I think it's about $25 that you pay per ton. So the big corporations all have to pay that, but that's not enough because that money has to actually be invested in in positive activities, right? So just a carbon tax is not enough. And what South Korea allowed companies to do is to buy carbon credits to offset that tax, right? So you either pay $25 in tax, or you can buy a carbon credit maybe for $10 that is saving the company money, but that is actually protecting a rainforest or restoring a mangrove project in another country with super high impact. So that's an example on a country-wide level, which is creating a lot of positive impact. On a business level, we have Starboard, the windsurf stand-up paddle board leader. They made a simple pledge: for every board that you buy, we plant a mangrove. And they calculate the carbon footprint of their board. I've looked at every single board that they have. It's amazing. They have it down to the scoop: 112 kilograms for this board, 132 for this one. And then by planting a mangrove, basically they are climate positive. And they have pledged to be 10 times climate positive and to pay for all of their historical carbon as well. In terms of bigger companies that are already doing this, Microsoft has pledged to pay for all of its historical emissions as well, right? So this is happening. Different municipalities as well are adopting this. And this idea is that we cannot do this on a local level only, right? We actually need to think global. And the fastest way to do this is for us to actually have a digital token that represents the impact. So we use a methodology that I call proof of impact, right? And you can go to proofofimpact.com. It's my former colleague, Julian Serko, who started this venture with a few others, with a beautiful idea that impact has value. And if you prove that impact, a tree was planted, for example, or a hectare of rainforest was protected, then you can look at what is the value of that impact in terms of, for example, carbon that you've saved. And then you can actually assign that impact onto a balance sheet, right? So that anyone, by buying a token to represent that tree or that rainforest, can actually have assets that balance themselves. So what Starboard has 200,000 mangrove trees and counting for the 200,000 boards and other items that they've manufactured. And that is their natural capital asset portfolio, right? And they've pledged for, the more boards they sell, the more of these that you actually have. And the cool thing is that they realized that, our customer, if you're buying a Starboard, well, you bought the board, so you've also bought the tree. You can have the tree. So Starboard, we're working with Starboard, is actually to give their customers the tree tokens. And then their customers go, wow, that's so cool. I'm protecting a mangrove tree. Maybe I want to buy some trees for the rest of my portfolio as well, right? So we're making it easy. The idea is just with the press of a button that you can get Earth positive.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing, because on the other hand, it sounds so simple. So I really hope that, it's easy to say that I really dreamed for everybody to be like this, but if the solution is so simple, I don't see a reason why the Earth shouldn't really change that drastically. So we were talking about the economy that should be regenerative, but in fact, I think we need regenerative culture that will stimulate this real transformation and to help save the Earth from the disaster that we are leading to. Also, I don't know if you agree, but it's often said that those new generations will be the drivers for the new social impact change. Would you say that they are the change makers that planet need right now? And do you believe that those new generations right now, they have enough different attitude to all this, let's say, fundamentals of the economy of the world, that it is leading to the drastic change in the future or by the end of their lives?
Yeah. So I absolutely believe that the young generation is vital for this. Actually, I remember a comment after I introduced our tree coin concept at the Wonder Fruit Festival. Sven Rasmussen, the founder of Starboard, says, it's amazing. In our generation, we have to be told this. the young generation, they all know, right? So it's just natural. The young generation has grown up in a world where they've looked at all what the IPCC report, as Greta Thunberg, right? When she started her campaign, she did the research and realized, my goodness, the best scientists in the world are saying we're headed to, right now the trajectory is now a 3.5 Celsius trajectory. That's essentially a Mad Max trajectory. Coral reefs are all dead. Basically, this is a scenario where COVID is like a little tremor, right? The 3.5 scenario is not a world you want to be in, but that's a world which Nobel Prize winner William Nordhaus, 2018, said, oh, for us to prioritize the economic growth, we should accept a 3.5 Celsius trajectory, because economic growth is more important than, and this is a Nobel Prize winner in 2018 saying this, one of the most respected figures in the world, who did the math, again, an economist, where Earth is like, well, it's kind of this byproduct, right? So I firmly believe that the real change will come from the grassroots. Sadly, the people who are running the big companies and the governments, they have all benefited from the existing system. Are they really going to be the ones to really change it? So I think it's always the youth that is the moral voice that looks at a situation and says, you know what, I'm not being paid off. I don't have a salary from someone, I'm just a fresh person. I'm looking at, a lifetime, 50, 60, 70 years ahead, right? We should be listening to the youth and to empower them. But of course, we all have to be part of it. We have to help them, right? And what I think we need to do is empower the youth by offering guidance on, well, how the systems work, how we can put in place systems that are better, empower them with financial resources so that they can do amazing startups, impact startups, right, that are changing the world. So I think we really need to support the youth, and ultimately everyone needs to be part of that. Everyone needs to help them, because the youth alone can't do that as well. So if we just go, well, good luck, guys, you are the future. Yeah, I hope you guys see
right now.
No, we all have to. We can't just kind of go, oh, well, it's their job, right? It's all of our job, right? Yeah. And we can all add whatever our special superpower is, and we all have superpower. Like as we get older, maybe we don't have the same physical strength and the energy, but we have some different perspective and wisdom that we can share as well. Maybe we have some financial resources that we can share. Maybe we have connections that we can share. Maybe we can influence some people as well, right? So we all need to be part of this.
Yeah, it's really great to hear that, and eventually seems to everything to be around the collaboration between generations, between people, each other, to work towards the same goal. I would like to also ask you, as you said, about this little drama about the COVID-19, but we are really living right now in a quite different circumstances, all designed by this crisis and worldwide pandemic. And we're looking, and I think slowly entering into the new normal. I would like to ask you, what do you think will happen in terms of impact investment, and what we could expect to see in the coming time when it comes to impact ventures? Do you think that those initiatives that will happen soon after, let's say, we are in the new normal, will have in fact more impact than what was done before?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, because clearly, in economic crisis is difficult for raising capital in the short term. But what we've now seen with central banks like the U.S. Fed buying ETFs with junk bonds in there, very aggressively, basically enabling investors to sell their risky assets. It means that there are a lot of investors now who've sold their junk bonds and the other things that now, thank you, Fed, you're holding it, but now they have cash. And they know, well, what are central banks going to do? What is adding liquidity? What is another round of QE? It will devalue financial assets relative to other things. So they have to start to deploy that cash. Gold is now at a new high. Well, that's a really dumb way to deploy capital. It is something tangible that can't be printed. But when you buy gold, you're actually destroying the world. You're saying that the price of gold is higher, so I'm going to incentivize more people mining it, and all mining is destructive. And so the smart thing is to actually realize, well, we have this cash, let's actually deploy it to those that are making the planet better, right? And there's a couple of benefits. Number one, the planet is better for us in the future, right? Number two, this will create new jobs, new creativity, a new ability for young people and people of all ages to have purpose, and to be able to have a good life. And then finally, there will be positive returns. That impact assets will outperform traditional assets. We're already seeing it. The valuation for venture capital venture capital, there's a premium for impact assets. Right? So the valuation is now higher. Yeah. Even Klaus Schwab in his interview realized that looking at how stock prices have performed, companies that care, that have a positive impact as part of their mission, have outperformed those that are purely extractive. So, investors will realize that the smart thing to do is actually to allocate towards impact assets. And I see a future where millions and tens of millions and maybe hundreds of millions of people will, as their primary vocation, be there to heal the earth, to heal each other, around positive impact, because that's what matters, right? And that's what we've, kind of forgotten about. But, now it's right there in front of us. We realize we're all part of this one planet. What happens in a wet market in Wuhan doesn't stay there, right? We're all connected. We have one climate. We have one ecosystem, one planet Earth, and we need to protect it and regenerate it. And so I think it's very clear to more and more people. It is our home.
Yeah. Well, perfectly summarized and said. And we were, so as we were talking about these new ventures and social impact entrepreneurship, that hopefully will be even more accelerating right now after those big changes in the world. What do you think, still looking at this area, what are the biggest obstacles for the growth of that ecosystem nowadays? And can you also think about some ideas, what would be the quick wins that we could achieve to boost the growth and the strength of that ecosystem?
Sure. So to me, the biggest obstacle really is that the large pools of capital are held by institutions and very wealthy individuals who are not used to making small allocations, $1,000, $10,000, $50,000, $100,000. They're used to making investments of 20 million at a time for projects that, well, they don't want to have more than a 20% stake, so it has to be a 100 million project, right? So if you're an impact project, with 100 million valuation, you're going to have investors lining up to get in there. But if you're an entrepreneur, a young entrepreneur with an idea, and you want to raise $10,000, much more difficult to raise 10,000 than 100 million, right? And that's crazy. Right?
Yeah.
And so what we really need is to build platforms where we make this, we empower, first of all, anyone to make small investments, right? So for example, investing in an impact startup, super risky. Most will fail, like most regular startups, 70% failure rate, right? So should someone put their life savings into that? Of course not. But can someone put €5 into that, knowing that, they're buying lottery tickets anyway, right? So we should enable anyone to make small investments. And that's how you unleash the capital. If we have platforms that use tokenization powered by blockchain, for example, to enable small investors to take small stakes, that raises the number of people and the total amount of capital that can be deployed, so that we don't just depend on the very few billionaires and the few large corporations to do this. But if we empower all of us to be part of, we unleash the floodgates. And we can do that by having like a system like Airbnb for, for impact ventures, right? Where you have peer reviews, where you're actually, you have a platform where you're connecting small investors with impact ventures and enabling the investors to be able to earn a good return on risk on their investment.
Yeah, I mean, everything that you also said previously seems to gather around this cooperation, and like also, but also there has to be like this switch and in the mindset of people, because without this, I mean, those concepts seems to be so simple that they could be there just tomorrow and like start changing the world, but sometimes it's really what we need is to somewhere change inside and go and do this. Alan, I have a last question for you, and I will be asking this to everybody right now. I would like to hear from you. What does innovation mean to you?
Great. So for me, innovation just for innovation's sake is not that interesting. I think it's great to be in a world where there's lots of innovation. But for me, innovation with purpose, innovation with a real positive impact is what I think matters. And how do we get innovation, something new that solves a problem, right? We get innovation from lots of cross-fertilization and collaboration. I love this TED Talk. Where do good ideas come from? I forget the author's name, Stephen something. He talks about this innovation ecosystem that's like a coral reef, where basically all these different species have collaborated, found a way to interact with each other in a positive way, and are creating so much biodiversity, right? That's nature's innovation. So innovation is kind of expanding the boundaries. It's finding something new, finding new paths, not just going on the old paths because they work. So to me, innovation is kind of a path finding. And to me, innovation is diversity. It's seeking something new and adding to this wonderful mix. And we never know if that new mix, that innovation that maybe was targeted towards one thing might be super useful for something else. So then I guess I would then say, just innovation for innovation's sake actually is not such a bad thing either. We should be in a society that really promotes innovation, because having something new, exploring the potential enriches us in ways that we will never know at the moment. Yes,
that's totally beautifully said, and I totally agree with what you said. Alan, so that was my last question for today. Thank you very much for every single sentence that you shared here with us, and I really hope that whoever is watching this interview feel inspired and actually empowered that one can really make a change for a very simple thing. And this is how I think we bring the change to the world. And I really hope to see this. And you're actually like really intrigued me, and I promise you that we finish and I'm gonna research and buy my trade. So thank you everybody for watching. Thank you one more time, Alan, for being here with us. That was BetaCast, and we have episodes every week. So stay tuned, be on our channel to see the next one. Have a great afternoon and see you soon.
Thank you so much, Martina. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.